the suppression, the use of marijuana.
I went to Patagonia.
Yeah, how was it? Where was it?
Costuming on point. It's called the Admiral.
I have no idea where that is.
Omaha has too many venues.
Oh, it was on Omaha. Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, so they are from here originally.
Yep.
So this was their...
Yeah, Alma knows her.
Oh my God. This was their homecoming performance and they were so excited. And their mom was in the audience.
Oh,
that was cute. They did a blind test, and she got everything right.
Of course, yes.
She was actually shocked. Like, she named them really fast because she was like, "I'm gonna do it," and then we all just like cheered really loud because she got them correct, and she was like, "Wait, are you serious? Like, did I?" I was like, "Yeah, you can't confuse amigos for Valentinos."
No. God.
I really thought they were going to do Hidden Valley, though. So they did Runza, Amigos, and Valentinos, which, fair. Those are all three locals. But I was like, Hidden Valley is originally from Nebraska.
Yes.
So I was like, it would be completely valid. However, her co-hosts are not from here at all.
Oh, wild.
One is from Utah. So there was a lot of Mormon jokes.
Of course.
And the other one's from California and has 36 drag children.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. She's also, or I guess he's a drag queen.
Yeah.
King. He's a drag king. So it was a very non-binary experience with them. It was very confusing.
Yeah.
But they were just so big personality. Like, and they did like all the calls were super loud. And I was just like, how are you breathing after this?
Yeah, that's fair. That's why I always... When MCs do performances, I literally always follow them back to their chair with some water.
Smart.
Because I know they're dying.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think about that in advance.
I don't think water would be enough for this performance.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it was very, environmental based. There was a lot of booing at billionaires. There was a lot of
good,
really funny, like meme-like things about how crappy the government is and corporations and all that jazz. So it was just a really fun way to hate on the man with other people.
Yes.
So,
I love that.
Yeah, it was a fun time. And I took two people who didn't have any experience with drag queens or drag shows. So I was like, oh, I didn't mean to deflower you, but cool.
Well, here you go.
Congrats. Welcome. I think Patagonia started the show with "Welcome to our cult."
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a fun time. I really
love
enjoyed that. And I got to go out of town. So
yeah.
That was nice.
That's super fun.
And not stressful.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. We need that sometimes.
Yeah, we do.
Especially with everything.
With the everything.
I'm Tia.
I'm Jamie.
We're the ADHD queens.
We are. Yay.
Woo. And Ryan might come back.
Ryan may come back.
I know
Not
we say
next
that
month,
every
but
time.
maybe the following month. Is that what I remember? I think he was thinking for June, like a big gay homecoming. We may have a Ryan.
We may
someday.
Not. We say that a lot.
Someday we'll have a Ryan, probably. Not on the radio. I recently asked him, hey, would you ever want to be a co-host on the radio? And he said, no.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. I'm not looking for like a perma. I was just looking to get people. Yeah. And he's like, no, So
respect.
You won't hear Ryan on the radio, but you may hear Ryan back on our podcast.
Yay.
Who we really do need to balance out the fact that we both have the exact same brain.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
All right. Well, this month we read When the Ground is Hard by Malla Nunn.
Yeah.
And that is for Eswatini, as was Swaziland in the time that this book is based.
Correct. So they do say Swaziland.
Yes.
And I was just like, okay, so the artist formerly known as Swaziland.
Literally.
I got to remember this. There's details. Okay.
Yes. Do you have information about Swaziland?
Yeah.
Slash
So
Eswatini?
a little fact about this little country. So in the book, it does reference South Africa. So I was like, okay, so where is this at? It is landlocked. So it's surrounded on 3 sides by South Africa, which is
Literally.
that's kind of scary. I'm not going to lie.
It is just, at least it's not Lesotho, which
Yeah,
is
completely.
all completely surrounded.
I was like, how did this work?
I
in
don't know
the
that.
war stuffs, because that's how you get land.
Yeah,
So I guess Britain just gave up.
I guess.
It's Britain, right?
Britain was the one that had,
Yeah.
Well, Dutch for South Africa.
Oh, okay.
But if I remember correctly, Swaziland was
British. Yeah.
rule,
Okay.
I think.
Maybe. Well, yeah. So what was it? Landlocked on 3 sides by South Africa, and then on the other side is Mozambique, and it's just this weird little shape. And
Yeah.
it's actually one of the few like maps where the outline looks like just a polygon and not like it doesn't have its little edges. And so I was like, this kind of looks fake.
It does kind of look fake.
So don't mind that in the artwork.
Yeah. It is a little funky.
But anyway, my little details that I also found out about it, as we know, that's been stated, it was called Swaziland, and it actually was a recent change in 2018.
Yeah.
Because they were like, no, we want it to sound more like what it should sound like.
Right.
So it's in commemoration of like a former king. Eswatini is just a chill little African country that probably could use a little assistance, but also we need to get out of there. So
yeah. So this book, When the Ground is Hard by Malla Nunn, it's a YA book. It is set in the 1960s Swaziland in a boarding school. And apparently the author, Malla Nunn, based this off of the same boarding school that she went to and her mother and grandmother went to. And so she was basing it in the time period that her mother was in the school, I think.
Okay.
Mother or grandmother, I can't remember. But she specifically was, so that's why it's set in the 1960s, is she knew this school, but she wanted to know the school through them.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure, well, I'd hope that some of it's adjusted with the times.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Who knows? Well, and like I didn't realize for a long time that it was not current based because I don't know anything about the country. So I have no idea what their technology is. I don't know anything. So I'm like, I don't know. But apparently this was based in the 60s. So this is, what, 60 some years ago? So yeah. And like we talked about, it was Swaziland until 2018. So they call it Swaziland. They say Swazi a lot. So the main characters are Adele and Lottie. Adele is a mixed race girl with a white Australian father and a black Swazi mother. And Lottie is mixed race. Race plays a huge role in this book.
And like, because it's so close to South Africa, it also just makes so much sense and why it's such a huge, frustrating thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 main characters, and that's where most of our action takes place. And then the sort of extraneous characters that become kind of important. You have Darnell, who is a mixed race kid, but he is disabled as well. So he is picked on ruthlessly by his classmates. He runs away from school a lot. Yeah. So that is sort of where he's going to come into play. And then you have the popular girls clique, which is called the Pretties. They called themselves the Pretties. So in case you want to know what they're like. So our plot follows Adele. She is the main character. She is part of the Pretties, the wealthy popular girl group at Kazaya Christian Academy. She is part of this group, and then for like every year up until now, and you know, they all share the same room. They have what they call pets, which are basically other classmates, which is just poor students that they pay to clean their room, pay. They pay them in,
Like sugar, things,
candy and
expensive stuff.
Yeah. So they all think that they're better than everyone else, including Adele, because she's part of their group. But then when they are going to the school, she gets on the bus to go, and the seat where she would normally sit with this popular group of girls, there's another girl sitting in there, and she's like, the most popular girl is like, oh, she's here right now. And she's like, what's happening? When they get to the school, she finds out that that girl's father donated to the school, and she is then bumped out of that room. So they moved kids around because they're like, well, she needs to be in a very nice room. So we're going to put her in here, take the least wealthy girl out. And so she gets bumped out of her room. She has to move to an abandoned room with Lottie, the least popular girl in school, who is very poor and does not take shit from anybody.
Yeah.
And she, Adele thinks that she is so much better than this girl. And she's like, oh my God, I have to live with this girl. And the room that they're living in is an abandoned room where a girl allegedly died years ago. So they all think that this is a haunted room. And so now she has to deal with the fact that she's living in this haunted room with this girl that she hates. And they clash like really hard at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because Lottie kind of like understands being in the lowest rungs of society, and Adele is like, I'm gonna get back in with that group. Spoiler alert, she doesn't.
Yeah.
So she doesn't want to be associated with Lottie, and they clash a lot at the beginning, and then eventually they start warming up to each other. Especially when Adele's father had given her a copy of Jane Eyre to take with her. And so she's reading it, and then one night she finds that it's like missing from where she had put it, and that's because Lottie had grabbed it and had read it, and she was like, I didn't go past where you were, so like don't be mad at me. So then eventually they start reading it with each other. So Lottie will read it, Adele will listen, Adele will read it, Lottie will listen, and they start to become friends. And they are both tormented by the pretties, obviously.
Yeah.
And then they also, so Adele meets Darnell really, like she's never really met him. She's just sort of like seen him around. And Lottie is friends with Darnell. She saw someone picking on him one time and stood up for him. And he, ever since then, was like cool with her and was like really just always wanted to be friends with her. And so she tries to take care of him a little bit. So then she introduces Adele to Darnell. And she also kind of befriends him. So she doesn't really know him very well, but, he's kind of like, okay, if Lottie says she's cool, she's cool. And all three of them kind of continue to be tormented by the pretties and all the popular kids in the whole school.
Which is literally everyone but them.
So this continues to happen. This is kind of like a cycle of being picked on and whatever. And then the school almost burns down one day. There's like a fire that like goes through the whole school, but Lottie and Adele, Lottie realizes that it's going towards the food storeroom. And so she goes to put that out. Adele goes with her, and they both kind of get some burns on them. They both have like a very traumatizing moment where they are literally beating back fire. So they don't
have a fire like force. It's just
it's just like the kids
and
the teachers. Everyone that's just there just has to deal with that. So they save the food storeroom. So they're given an award for their bravery, and of course the pretties are not happy about that because they are now getting a lot of good attention. So they try to start a rumor that like the two of them started the fire in the first place, which was ridiculous. And then they prove that they obviously didn't. And that makes the pretties even more angry, but they can't really do anything because these are like the saviors of the school. So then Darnell runs away at this point, again, as he always does. And just keep that in your brain. Lottie takes Adele to a nearby town that Adele has always kind of ignored because she has always thought that she was better than this little Swazi town that's out in the middle of nowhere because she's half white. And she finds some of her relatives of her mother there, and she starts to realize like, oh, these are actually my people. Like, I'm not better than them. I just have never been here before.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a poorer town, but she realizes like, oh, poor people are people. You know, this is kind of like one of the theses of the whole book. When the school, so she's kind of learning through all of these things, things about racism and about just humanity, kind of.
Yeah.
When they get back, eventually the school decides to actually search for Darnell, and Lottie and Adele come across his dead body. He was on a white man's farm.
A crazy white man's farm.
Evil white man who they find him and they contact the school. The school comes to get the body, and the white man shows up and like threatens them. He demeans them. He says like really nasty stuff to them.
It's just a good old fashioned racist.
Just real racist guy. And while this is all happening and they're waiting for the truck to come pick up the body, they notice that the young daughter seems to also be disabled, and she is reacting extremely negatively to the fact that Darnell is dead. In this way of like, she's like trying to reach for him. So it very much seems like they knew each other. Obviously, this is a mixed race kid and this is a white girl, so probably it wasn't out in the open the way that they knew each other, but
Sure.
Darnell ran away a lot. So the two of them kind of assume, oh, he ran here, he probably came, they were friends, you know? And this whole thing obviously traumatizes these two little girls again.
Yeah.
So they've already done the weird, you know, oh, we put out the entire fire that saved all of the food supplies. You're welcome. And now we find the dead body of our friend. Obviously the pretties are really shitty about it. But they're both extremely traumatized. Lottie is convinced that the white man who owned the farm killed Darnell.
Because it's really believable.
Because it's extremely believable, because this guy is racist. And he always yelled at people who came on their farm.
Yeah, like it did not matter.
Yeah.
You just, no.
So if you're a mixed race kid and you're on his farm, like he's gonna shoot you. So Lottie assumes this. Adele is obviously struggling a lot. She writes a letter to her mother that she doesn't mean to send. She does this sometimes. She just like writes thoughts just to get it out of her brain.
It's like her journal.
It's just like a journal. And she explains how she feels like she's a different person than she was at the beginning of the school year. You know, I'm not the same daughter you had, whatever. A teacher accidentally sends that without realizing what it is, because she
didn't even look. She
didn't even look.
Like,
of course she
"Here,
didn't. It was just like a letter addressed to your mom. Great. I'll put it in the post. So for a couple weeks, she doesn't hear anything back, and she's like, oh my God, my mom is so upset, because she has this picture of her mom in her brain that her mom is like, she wants what's best for her, which is true, but she kind of thinks that what's best for her is being popular and being, you know, a good girl.
She has a very skewed perspective. Yeah.
So her mom doesn't answer back, and so she's really broken up about this, but then her mom shows up
And she's
to the school, and she's a hottie boom body. And she like says to the girls, like, I'm going to go to town. Do you want to go to town with me? And Adele is like, well, we don't have permission to go. And the mom is like, who cares? And Lottie's like already on the bus.
Yeah. She's like, okay, let's go.
So she's like, yeah, we're going. So they go to town. They go into a shop that her mother knew from when she was a child, when she was also here.
Yeah.
And the white man shows up in town, and he remembers Lottie and Adele and is mad because also Lottie said some stuff that she shouldn't have said to him.
But good for her.
But also she was so right, so jot that down. But then he sees the mom and insinuates that he has some sort of violent history with her.
Yeah, it's really not a great moment.
And he remembers that she used to sing in the woods, and he wanted to shoot her like he shot all the songbirds that used to sing in the woods, because he's a terrible person.
Yeah, like it goes beyond just racism. Like it's like pure evil.
Like genuine
Like
evil.
he gets joy from making people afraid of him.
Yes.
Ugh.
So At this point, the daughter is around, I think.
Yeah, she's like out in the truck or something.
Yeah, she's out in the truck. And she says something that sort of implies that she's like thinking about Darnell, and she says that there were purple butterflies. And Lottie immediately realizes, because one of the things about Darnell is that he always wanted to get a perfect gift for all of his friends.
Yeah.
And she realizes, oh my God, he was trying to catch a purple butterfly for her, because he was really physically fit and he would jump around places. So they were like, there's no way. That's why they kind of thought that he was shot or killed in some way by the white guy, because like there's no way Darnell tripped and fell. But if he was focusing on these butterflies and walking at them, it kind of makes sense why, if he was trying to catch the butterfly for her. So the white guy didn't kill him after all. He could have, and we would have believed it.
Would he be the one who put the butterflies in view?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, he
Maybe.
would. So
you don't know.
This is not 100% disproven.
Nope. So then white guy is throwing a fit, is being like so shitty and evil. And Adele just starts singing, just to really like rub it in his face. Like, you can't stop us from singing. And the phrase that the title of the book comes from is, when the ground is hard, the women dance. Because it's like, this is us. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We dance and we sing and we love life.
Yeah.
So the three of them lock arms and they leave and they sing as they walk away, just to piss off the white guy.
So kind of like Wizard of Oz.
Kind of like Wizard of Oz. And that's the book.
Yeah. That actually was a summary.
Thank you. I wrote a lot of notes.
Yeah. Like, you hit like all the like major. Nice. Okay. That was good.
Thank
Congrats. You did great. We're starting to figure it out.
Yeah.
First impressions.
I had no idea what we were doing with this. Because I didn't look it up at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm technically hosting this. And this was a book that I literally I picked it because it was for a country I hadn't read before, and it had an audiobook.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Those are very important.
That is why I picked this book. So my first impressions were just sort of like trying to get a handle on like, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
And once I was like, oh, this is just sort of like a coming of age kind of thing, then I was like, okay, cool. And then Darnell's death just really, I was just like, we're going to learn about racism. And then it's like, the kid died. And I was like, okay, jump scare. Sorry, Darnell.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's, yeah. Like, I think when I started, because again, I didn't know anything about the book either. And I tried looking up even just information at the library for this country, and they had like only this book.
Cool.
I was like, okay, well, that's not great. So internet, yay, thank you.
Yeah.
So when we were listening to the girl explain her perspective, I was so annoyed. I was just sitting there annoyed with her and her.
With Adele?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
because the beginning she's
kind of awful, and it's not her fault, and we understand that. But like, it's also still such a shock to me. And I know that this is not how it works everywhere. But like here, it's like, yeah, no, you hate each other, or maybe you don't get along and you just kind of avoid each other if you don't like the way that you look by your color. But it's still so prevalent in this story. Definitely like Jim Crow times, but like almost so much worse.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of mixed kids, and that is not an uncommon thing. And that was the thing that shook me, is that as long as your skin was paler, that moved you up.
I mean, absolutely.
And then if you had wealth, that moved you up further. And like, we know that, but like, just to see how easy it was for her to fall off just because a wealthier, whiter girl came in.
Yeah, because they're all like, almost all of them are mixed.
Yeah.
But you have that, she's mixed race and she has a wealthy father, but this other girl has a wealthy father that is wealthier. And
he's around.
Married.
Yeah.
Yep. Because
that is also important.
Adele's father he has a whole life.
In South Africa.
Yeah. And he is not, so he does say at some point that Adele's mother is the love of his life, but he he's not going to uproot his whole white family for her.
Yeah. And that was also something I was like, okay, is the dad a sleazeball, or is he genuinely stuck in the situation where he had to follow these certain like restrictions because he needed to be able to function as a person?
Yeah.
And so then this is like his only way to really get the life that he wants.
Yeah. Well, and it was really interesting, Adele's relationship with her father, because at the beginning we don't know that.
Yeah.
All that we know is when her father comes around, she acts totally different.
Yeah.
You know, because she like, her mother always laughs at what he says, and she is expected to be perfect and whatever. Mm-hmm. But we don't really know how much of that really, you know, he needs.
Yeah.
You know, it just sort of seems like once we hear from him, because we do hear from him, he calls Adele to congratulate her on the award that she's about to receive. And he seems kind of awkward, but whatever. And he tells her straight up, your mother is the love of my life.
Yeah.
You know, and it seems very much like her mom is in love with him. So it's like when Lottie at some point asks her, do you love your dad? She like kind of has this moment where she's like, well, I have to.
Right.
You know, and then once she starts to kind of like think about the world differently, when she starts to understand that like Lottie isn't inherently worse from her because she's poor, and Darnell is not worse than her because he has different mental capacities.
Yeah.
And, you know, so-and-so isn't worse because they're blacker. She starts to like even give some empathy to her father. And she's like, oh, I think that I do love him. Like, I think that I understand what he has to do. Like, he could destroy his entire life and come live with us, but that's still people that he would then ruin, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's a complex situation, and she's more like understanding of it at the end.
Yeah.
I also found it interesting. So Lottie is fairly pale, but she was raised in a tribal area.
Yep.
And then she lost her father, and so she is considered the poorest because she doesn't have any parents.
Yep. Well, she has a mom, I think.
But she doesn't really talk. Her dad was
I don't
the
think
one
that
that's
her
like
mom
the
was
important.
good.
Yeah. I think the dad was the main
Yes.
drive. And that's also partially why Lottie asks Adele if she likes her dad or not. But I liked just how complex their relationships were with the people around them.
Yeah.
But of course, Lottie being the one that understands empathy more, and has more emotional intelligence, was the one to be able to like, I'm not going to force you to realize this, but like,
here you go.
Here's a good question.
Yeah.
And that's like, everyone needs that friend.
Yeah. Well, she also does a lot of breaking the rules, like real rules. Like, she goes out in the middle of the night when she's not supposed to, but also societal rules.
Yeah.
So right at the beginning, she comes back with, well, because they were in a car accident, like the bus was in a car accident caused by a white guy
who was rushing around.
Yeah. Who was not, you know, giving respect to anybody else on the road. And Adele's arm gets kind of twisted in the car accident. So or bus accident, I guess. And so she has like, she's in so much pain when they get back. And Lottie goes out and she steals some stuff from Adele's suitcase to pay for a medicine to help her.
Right.
So first of all, you're breaking the rules by stealing stuff from your roommate, but you're also going out in the middle of the night, and you're also coming back. She like jumps on Adele and like physically lathers this onto her because she knows that it's going to help her arm, which it does.
And it's like herbal.
And it's herbal.
It's not like a prescribed
thing. Yeah. So she knows that she's going to look down on this because it's a, you know, native recipe or whatever.
Yeah.
But she also knows that it's going to heal her. So she breaks rules. So she shows Adele that it's fine to break rules, but she also breaks like social contracts. So like Adele is like, oh, I got to fight her because she did that, but she can't because her body is like broken.
And
so
Lottie's,
she's like, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep.
Incredibly strong.
But then later, Adele goes in and picks out, because Lottie is Jewish, and she picks out a dreidel and she's looking at it, and Lottie comes in and is like, what are you looking at? And it's her stuff. And she's like, oh no, Lottie is going to beat me up because I was looking at her stuff, because that is expected at the school. So that was like a social construct that everyone knows. If you don't fight someone for doing that, then you're weak and a loser.
Yeah.
And Lottie just doesn't, because Lottie breaks every rule. Whatever rule it is, she doesn't care. She lives by her own rules. And like her breaking all of these rules, showing that you actually don't have to retaliate physically if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Like there are times that they do.
Which is well deserved.
But it's like, you don't just automatically do that. You think before you do stuff. You really have, and Lottie does not care what is expected of you in anything.
Lottie shows exactly that she understands how to use her brain and think independently of the group.
Yeah. And actually, oh my God, this was one of my favorite quotes. I wrote the whole scene down, so I'm really sorry. So a white boy in a bus is going past. He spits at Adele and hits her in the face. And they call them slurs. And Lottie, Adele is like, sad face. And Lottie picks up a stone, gives it to her, and is like, toss it, throw it at the bus.
Yeah.
Like, fuck them. And a white missionary woman catches them doing this. So that's the scene. This is the conversation. Mrs. Vincent.
I know exactly. Okay.
Yeah. Mrs. Vincent is the missionary. So Mrs. Vincent says, what that boy did was wrong, but the gospel tells us to repay unkindness with kindness and hatred with love. Do you understand? They both say yes. Mrs. Vincent says, what does the Bible say about loving our enemies? And Adele says, but I say to you, love your neighbors and pray for those who persecute you. Matthew 5:44. And Mrs. Vincent says, that's right. Violence begets violence. So tell me, what should you have done instead of throwing stones? And Lottie cuts in and says, Adele should have turned the other cheek and let the boy spit on her a second time. Then, amazed by our humility and goodness, the boy would have come to love and appreciate us in time. So obviously not what Mrs. Vincent is looking for. But
actually, in reality,
that's what you're asking her to do. And then Adele is, observing all of this happen. And she says in her own brain, Mrs. Vincent doesn't know how to tell me straight to my face that, yes, I should have smiled when the boy called us monkeys, that I should have let him spit on me again, that God loves to see his children endure because it teaches them strength. Would she give her 2 young daughters the same advice? Got him. No, of course she wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it that way, that's obviously not.
Right.
You're not going to tell someone to do that. So I loved that scene for showing us, like, Lottie, she does have her limits. She will speak out if she wants to, but she also does. There are times that she just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, she never blows up. She's always very strategic.
She's very strategic. She thinks a lot, and I was listening to this when I was driving, and I couldn't obviously type this all out, so I just looked at where I was, and then I had to go back later and type this whole thing out, because that is just amazing, because that is exactly the point. You have this white missionary woman, this white woman who has never been called a racial slur in her life, wouldn't even know what to do with it at that point, telling these 2 young girls, oh, you should love your neighbor, you should love whatever, but that's not how this works. That is very idealistic. So I was floored by that. And that is so indicative of Lottie and what she stands for, really, because you can't punish her for that, right? You can't punish her for saying that.
Correct.
Because that's actually exactly what you were saying. She's just pointing out the flaw in your logic.
Yeah.
Incredible. No notes. Lottie, you're so right.
She was a very impressive character, and I kind of hope that the author's mom or grandma was
I know.
like
I was
that.
thinking that. I really hope that is something that one of them said to a white lady.
Instead of just being like a just completely fantasy situation. Because obviously things could have happened in that situation where they would have gotten completely messed up, or just thrown into prison or something. Because that's completely possible when you have any sort of color at all. The scene, though, that scared me the most was really when the white man was pointing his gun directly at Lottie. I was like, no, there's a gun in the story. Oh my God, is it going to go off?
Yeah, that's fair.
Fortunately, we did not have that situation.
No.
But like, it really just solidified just how terrible and how low he saw other people was. Because she was just being like, they'll be here. They will make the time to get here. We just need to wait. And he was just refusing to be cooperative in any way, shape, or form. And of course, she actually gets aggravated at this point. This is like the first time we actually see her like angry. Yeah. And it is pretty close to the end of the book, but you know, it's also partially because her friend died. But he starts off right away with a slur, and is it Afrikaans? Yep. And the missionary guy who's Mr. Vincent, he doesn't even understand it, and it's just like, see, you even got called something, and you have no idea,
and you don't know,
and it wasn't really
because you can't speak the language of the country that you're in. So
then he has to have these little girls translate for him to a guy who refuses to acknowledge their existence. Like, what? Yeah. So there's some really good nuances within the story that just give you a very good look into what that kind of experience is like. Speaking as a person who's very white passing, I don't get a whole lot of that interaction where I'm like slurred at. I just get a lot of, you're not really that at all. So whatever, that's my experience. But this was, I feel like it was really good about making it so that you could understand how painful that kind of scenario would be. Because you feel like your hands are tied. And if it's a white man and you do anything to him,
I mean, he has the gun. He has the legal power behind him.
So if he shot them, nothing would have happened.
Nothing would have happened.
Him and his sons would continue
just
to
moved
have
on.
their farm.
Yep.
And I pray for that little girl, and I don't pray.
I know.
I felt so bad for her. I was like, of course you have a shit father.
I put down a quote about her. So the daughter of the white guy, and this is, I put the thesis statement of the book, exclamation point. So this is when she is reacting to Darnell's death, and she is like trying to reach out to him, and Adele has realized, they were friends. They were friends, and they knew each other, even though society says they shouldn't have, because this is a mixed race kid, and this is a white girl. They shouldn't have even known each other. Right. And so the narration is, her ignorance sets her free from the rules. There's a lesson in that for me, if I could grasp it through the pain in my heart. The thesis statement. Yeah. Ignorance sets her free of the rules. If you don't know the rules, they don't make sense, because racism is inherently non-logical. Yeah. Because if you don't know about racism, then you don't. You're just this is a person. Right. It has been proven that you have to be taught to be racist. Yeah. And it is because children absorb everything. Yeah. That I remember writing that quote down too. Yeah. Because I was just like, yep, that's it. You got it. That hits it right out of the park. Literally. I did appreciate the explanation of the title. I valued that a lot. I was like, I wish we had this for every single book. Yeah. Like sometimes they're obvious, like A Man Called Ove, like duh, his name. And then there's Pachinko, where we just look too far into it. Where everything. I had so many thoughts about that, and I was definitely wrong. Yeah, but
This one.
I tried. This one literally told us.
I was like, great. And they told us the phrase, and then they explained the phrase.
They explained the phrase, and this was at the beginning. They told us. It was like one of the first things in the intro. It said the Eswatini proverb, and then at the end of the book, we showed it. I was like, wow, full circle. Thank you.
Like, great. So if more authors could just slide
Just
that
do that.
in real quick,
That would be awesome.
I would
Thank
be
you.
much happier.
Thank you.
All of the authors who are listening to our podcast.
Every one of them. Sonali Dev, probably. Malla Nunn,
Yeah.
probably.
The next person, yeah.
Min Jin Lee, probably.
Naturally.
You're all here, I assume.
I follow them on Instagram through our account, so
yeah,
maybe.
so there you go.
Be like, hey, we talked about you guys.
We did talk about you.
Dude, that book was so easy to get through, though.
I agree with that. I kind of forgot that it was for the podcast because I read all books like this a lot. And there are other books that I have started reading that I started like thinking about like, oh, what are we going to talk about? I was like, oh, this is not for the podcast. This is just a book that I'm reading. And this was kind of the opposite. I was just sort of vibing for a really long
Yeah.
time. And then, yeah, I was just like, oh, I am going to have to talk about this, which is fine. I was happy to. But yeah, it was very easy to read. The narrator, Bonnie Turpin, I have listened to a lot of her books that she reads. She is really good. She does a good job.
I think there's only been a couple books where we've really had complaints about the author, or an author. Blech.
The narrator?
The narrator.
Yeah, talk to me.
God, that was so unfortunate.
That was rough.
Yeah, I think there was one other that I didn't like, but I can't remember it off
You
the top.
didn't like the Ghost Bride narrator.
I didn't. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
It's not the author's fault. I would not do well as a narrator
Oh,
for my own book. So
Mm-mm. Never. Couldn't be me.
yeah, I don't know. Did you have other thoughts?
I had another quote.
Sure.
This quote. It kind of said the same thing that the conversation between Mrs. Vincent and Lottie had of like, when you tell us to follow these Bible verses, like this is what you're really saying. And this quote was, something had happened and someone said like, you know, oh, please, Jesus or something. And I think it was Adele's mom said, Jesus is in London working on more important matters. Because of course Jesus is with the white people. Because like if Jesus was here, a lot of these things wouldn't be happening. And it's like your Jesus that you keep telling us to pray to is not helping me.
Yeah, that's a tough.
That I
lesson to
wrote,
have.
Jesus is in London working on more important matters. Damn. Because
is-
what?
That is one of the great questions that comes up when at some point in a lot of kids' like experience. And I remember having those thoughts like very early. I'm just like, then why does the world suck?
Yeah.
Because I read a lot of Holocaust stuff really early on. And I was like, why didn't anyone save them?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was interested to see that also come through because they are being what missioned.
Yeah. Missioned at.
Well, also the academy is, I think, is exclusive to mixed children. I don't think there's.
It could be.
I don't think that there
Like
is-
everyone that we know is mixed race.
Yeah.
So
But I remember them or her talking about like the politics of the whole thing and just like who was what, and like the teachers that weren't mixed were like at the front because they needed to get off or something like that. Yeah, so there's a whole system to the whole thing, so you like learn the entire racial rules within like the first couple pages.
oh, so quick.
And it's just because she's like freaking out about getting on the bus,
Yeah.
and I'm just like,
Yeah, because it's like, oh, these ones have to sit here. These ones have to sit here. If you're good, you sit here. If you're bad, you sit here. And like all of this to do with, racism, colorism.
yeah,
If you're darker, that's bad. If you're lighter, that's good. I really liked watching, because like we know that Lottie and Adele are going to become friends. Like that is so obvious if you're reading this book.
like they're holding hands on the cover.
Well, and just like, why else would we be telling this story? But I really liked watching them do that. I thought that was very realistic in getting someone from where Adele is at the beginning of the book, who thinks that this is like the worst punishment the world could ever give her because she has to be with this poor girl in this scary, definitely there's a ghost involved room. And getting her from that point to little by little, just kind of watching Lottie and seeing like how Lottie interacts with the world and seeing how like, oh, wait, the pretties think they're better than me, but I used to think I was better than everyone else because I was with the pretties. And if the pretties aren't better than me, then what does that say about everyone else that I thought I was better than?
Yeah.
You know, and just like watching her go through that whole process of a child, because she is a child.
Yeah.
And it's really realistic, I thought.
Yeah. I did feel like Lottie was like, yeah, we're going to be friends. I'm just going to do some shit. And
I think Lottie knew that immediately.
Yeah. And then
she's just like, whatever.
Adele was like,
no,
I don't want it.
Yeah. Even like a really, I don't know, like 50% of the way through the book, I wrote down the quote, Lottie isn't really my friend. And I was like, okay, girl, like Lottie is definitely your friend.
Yeah,
and also Lottie is going to be your friend.
Still trying to like backtrack and be like.
Yeah. This whole time she's like, no, we're definitely not friends. And
like,
then
but
eventually she's like.
Doing friend things.
Yeah. They're literally just like sitting in their room together, like ignoring the pretties. So the pretties start this rumor that they started the fire and they send their pets to go they send their pets to go, like, I don't know, make fun of them and tell them like, oh, we know that you started the fire. And I can't remember which one. I think it was Adele, because Lottie was getting kind of upset. And Adele was like, how? Can you tell me how we started the fire? And they're like, sticks probably. And she's like, okay, take some sticks, make a fire, and show that to me. Show me how you can make fire with two sticks together. And they're just having, you know, once Lottie realizes like what she's done and they run off, they're both just like, that was funny. And then they just kind of hang out. They read Jane Eyre together and they just vibe. And I'm like, of course you're friends.
Duh.
You little dumbass.
That's actually, that's her. She's just kinda,
of course you're friends, you little dumbass.
That's just such a good description of her, though.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that they're children, so like there wasn't really an option for her to be any other way. But you know, when you get to a certain age and you're like, God, can you just hurry up and figure it out?
I know.
That's
but
why
they're children.
That's why parents forget how to interact with children, because they're like so far away
from being children
and being dumb and not knowing things and thinking you know everything.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I skewed my mom's words.
Wow. Oops.
I didn't understand what she was trying to tell me. Oh no.
Yeah. And then the cycle repeats itself.
As it does. But hopefully when she's 25 in her fantasy future, she'll be like, hey, Lottie and I are really cool people now.
Yeah.
And
I like to imagine that Adele and Lottie went on to be BFFs, and Lottie got to leave her stupid, terrible situation at home and go live with Lottie, or go live with Adele and her mom.
Okay. Well, I have the next book.
Oh, good.
So the book that we will be reading next month is called The Volcano Daughters by Gina Maria Ballebrera. It takes place in El Salvador.
And what day is that coming out?
June.
May.
May 27th is what we see on our calendars. So May 27th is when we will be discussing El Salvador. And I think it's actually like a pretty dark period, so we should probably prepare.
Great.
For some sad history type stuff. Oh, volatile is a descriptor. Great.
Fantastic.
Cool. Well, I'm really curious how this is going to play out.
There was some sad. but this was still pretty light,
Yeah, this was fairly light.
all things
so
considered.
It is my job to come in and throw like a hardball.
That is totally okay.
This was one I did find when checking books in. And so I was like, oh, look, this is an interesting cover. And then I was like, oh, this says El Salvador. And then I was like, cool. I don't think I got beyond that.
That's okay.
So that's my bad.
That's fine.
But
we'll get through it. It can't be worse than Pachinko, only in that was the very first one.
we did go off with the sad immediately. And then we got even sadder. And
Yep.
we've
We've done some sad books, y'all.
We're trying to do better.
I did Here the Whole Time, which was so lovely and
That
sweet.
was a very sweet
and so
novel.
cute. So you're welcome.
I still think about mermaids.
Yeah.
It was very adorable.
You're welcome.
I don't know why. I'm depressed. I don't need sad books.
It's cathartic.
That's what I keep telling myself.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. Anyway. See ya.
Bye.
We did it.
We...
See you next time.
The suppression, the use of marijuana.
This podcast was brought to you in part by KCUN
Yeah, we could say that.
Please tell me you recorded that.
89.3 FM, KCUN.
Perfect.